New money coming to Jefferson County to help support domestic violence victims in Watertown. 7 News reporter Lexi Bruning learns more about the Strive program and how the $500,000 will help.
This year alone, we've already responded to over 250 domestic incidents within the city of Watertown itself.
Incidents Detective Lieutenant Joe Giaquinto says aren't easy to respond to.
Our officers go into people's homes. They get to see the toll that this takes on the families, to include the pets, the children, the uninvolved family members.
Those are a couple of reasons Jefferson County was awarded more than $500,000 by the state to help support domestic violence victims and their families. It's a program called Strive, which stands for Statewide Targeted Reductions in Intimate Partner Violence. Much of the grant will go to the Watertown Police Department and Victims Assistance Center and will create a high-risk team. District Attorney Christina Mills says right now the county is in the process of forming that team.
What we will do is, when we review these forms that come in on the domestic incidents, we will staff these cases to make sure that the victims are getting the services that they need, as well as the offenders, to cut down on any kind of repeat offenses.
When awarding the grant, the state studied the number of domestic violence incidents in Jefferson County from 2018 to 2022. The statistics include domestic violence victims for more than 3,000 simple assaults, 200 aggravated assaults, and reports 310 arrests for strangulation.
It would be nice to bring the numbers down, but it would be even better to be able to help these families heal and ensure that this type of behavior doesn't continue. We want to avoid the tragedies that this type of behavior sometimes ends up with.
Giaquinto says the grant will also help the Victims Assistance Center bring on more staff who often respond alongside police to domestic violence calls. Lexi Bruning, 7 News.